when we want to have a relationship with Amazon Web Services, we will start with creating a account for us. So account is the basic fundamental um, security boundary in AWS, which has to be created for each and every end users or end customers. So as a personal, we have two different major accounts. Okay, so generally we create it for personal use, and we can also create it for professional use. So AWS account, it's like a security boundary which we create in AWS, and so we have two categories, personal and professional category of AWS account that we can create. So personal is mainly for the usage that we have for training or proof of concept or learning purposes. We utilize it, right, for training or yeah, learning purposes, right? And professional, it is what we create for the business application to be hosted or at the enterprise level. Okay, so mainly this one, training, learning, I would say experimentation, and so on. Okay, so if we are a customer or end user who want to experiment the AWS products and services, and if you want to understand how many different products and services they are offering, and if you want to create anything, like we need to create a AWS account. So that is the first starting point for anything that we want to do with AWS, right? So once we have the AWS account created, or in order to have this AWS account created, we need to have a personal email ID. Okay, so that can be your existing Google Mail ID, or you can also create an email ID from other third-party email services. So you need to have a personal email ID, and you also need to have um, phone number, address, and other details about your personal, like your full name, first name, last name, and PAN card is optional. So this is needed for the professional category. So GST number and the PAN card number will be needed for will be needed for professional, but for personal needs, you don't have to really give that. And address is something, yeah, which you can enter, and credit card is needed for ensuring that the legal usage is being done. So there are a lot of opportunity for hackers or attackers. They can use AWS account to run services which are not legally permitted or stuff. So in order to avoid such scenarios, AWS does a credibility check, and they also do a authenticity check just for avoiding any mishaps. Okay, so this is very common these days. Like if you go and subscribe for Uber or any Zomato or any online services, nowadays they just do a banking credibility check to ensure that you have a banking relationship in that particular country or in that particular location. So that's just for verification. So they will take 2 Indian rupees from your account, and they will return it back in 3 to 5 business days. Okay, in other locations it might be $1. Okay, but in India it is like 2 Indian rupees. So this is what we need to create a AWS account. And as I told you, AWS account, we might have multiple AWS account in a larger enterprise, but for a startup or a small size company, one AWS account is more than sufficient to have your resources created and hosted. But even in a startup or small size company, if you have multiple environment, multiple business unit, or multiple department where you want to have segregation in terms of billing, or if you want to have some isolation, then you can create multiple AWS accounts. So it is not that as a startup you should have only one AWS account. You can have multiple AWS account. It depends on it. It is based on the functions, or it is based on the requirements of the customer. For enterprises, definitely we will have multiple companies will have multiple AWS account. And the question comes here, right? Why we need multiple AWS accounts? See, as in AWS account, you can consider that as a logical folder or logical grouping or a container. So don't confuse with the application container. This is just a folder or a kind of grouping for your AWS resources. So whatever AWS resources you are creating or products you are subscribing, AWS account is a container for your AWS resources, and we can call this as a fundamental security boundary. So if you want to isolate, bring isolation to your resources, like if you want to segregate by business unit, or if you want to segregate by department, or if you want to do it by environment. When I say environment, I'm talking about production and non-production. So within non-production, you might have testing, QA, development, and so on. So if you want to segregate your accounts by environment or by business unit or by administration capabilities. So when I say administrative capabilities, so different regional team will be supporting different locations. So maybe, for example, it might be due to linguistic requirement, or maybe there might be some situations where Americas regions is supported by the nearshore team in South America, like Costa Rica or Mexico, or maybe the European accounts might be supported by the local team, and Asia Pacific will be supported by some offshore team or some team in India. So maybe like we will have some regional teams supporting the local region just for the 24/7 support, or the local time support. We might have different administrative teams for supporting different environments. So we can group multiple accounts by administrative capabilities, or by environment, or by business unit, or even we can segregate it by access requirement. See, certain third party might need access to a particular set of application. See, in such cases, as an organization, as a service provider, let's take TCS or Wipro or any company who is currently managing a particular AWS account. They will not be happy to share that particular AWS account with some third party application provider or third party service provider companies. So what they generally do is they will recommend to go and create a separate AWS account where we need third party application vendor or third party teams to have control on that particular thing. So if we need to have different teams accessing the resources, we can better create different AWS account to segregate the resources into that account and give them permission. And again, if you want kind of billing boundary, so for example, if you want to have separate bills for separate business unit, or a separate department, or maybe like a particular organization might have done a lot of acquisitions, there might have been a lot of merger in their organization. So from outside, maybe it might look like a one organization or one company, but ideally, like they might not do a kind of complete merger even for an acquisition. See, if they are acquisitioning a particular company, for example, Amazon has acquisition hundreds of company in the past 15-20 years, right? So they will separate, they will have some separate logical isolation, so that if in case they want to spin off or they want to send that account outside of their support scope, they will just move that AWS account to different company. So definitely they will have see, AWS account, it provides a natural segregation or natural security boundary, mainly like in terms of isolating by department or business unit, or maybe by access permission or access control requirement, or administrative control requirement, or maybe like we might create multiple accounts for the billing purposes. So these are the three major things, okay? Security, access control, and billing boundary. So these are the primary things, but we might have to create multiple AWS account based on customer requirements. See, for example, when I worked with a particular customer recently, it is a very large enterprise customer. So what they asked me to do is they want me to have multiple accounts created, and the guidance that they gave to me is that, so they want to have SIEM, security incident event management, captured by captured in a separate AWS account, and this AWS account will be handled by a security third-party vendor. Okay, I don't want to give some name, but you can take any name as a particular company. So that company will manage this SIEM solution for that particular customer. So they want to have a separate AWS created account created for the security incident and event management. So all the security incidents and events will get accumulated here, and we might create a separate AWS account. And in some cases, customers will say, I want to have logs kept in a different AWS account. If in case any corruption happens or if some major accounts are getting compromised, the log should be available for me to do auditing or reverse troubleshooting, or they want to have control on the logging. So logging accounts will only be managed and maintained by the cloud security team, or only selective security administrator and SMEs will have access to this logging account. So customers might come with specific requirements like this. They might want to have segregation, or they might have want to have some management related stuff kept in a separate account. I've seen customers asking me to have a dedicated account for shared services. So when I say shared services, you might have multiple applications for multiple business unit, but certain services like Active Directory or DHCP or DNS, or these are all certain services which are needed for all your businesses, right? For example, I'll just list down something. So Active Directory, FTP or SFTP, or mailing, or what do you call ICS or SNS notifications, even DNS and stuff, right? So these services are utility services. These are all commonly used by all your business application and stuff. We cannot have separate AD for separate business units, or separate SCS, SNS, ACS for. I mean, we can have it, but then it is going to complicate the support, or it is going to complicate the administration if you have too many systems created for it. So what we generally do is, for shared services, utility services, we have a separate AWS account where we will have all these systems put together, and all the applications from each business unit will be leveraging this or using it as a shared services. So generally we might create separate account for shared services. And within your organization, we might have a support team categorized into cloud operations, cloud security, and even we might have specialization team like cloud networking team and so on. But in most of the organization, we might have only 2 or 3 categories. Like we might have categories like cloud ops, cloud security, and FinOps team, and maybe DevOps team, and so on. So why I'm bringing this point here, see, some of these teams are separate teams, and they are doing separate functional work, or they are doing some separate I mean, their roles and responsibilities are different. So what we generally do is, for DevOps tools, like when I say DevOps tools, for your Jenkins or CI/CD pipeline related tool set, or maybe your GitHub, or any tools like Argo CD, or whatever tools you are using, SonarQube, different DevOps tools might be used, and we might have a separate DevOps tool support team. We might also create separate AWS account for DevOps purposes, and even the FinOps team might need a separate AWS account, and already I showed it, right? So they might need a separate account for paying the complete bill, or they might only need access to the bill that are being generated from different AWS accounts. So we might have FinOps team might have access to all the billing account or the master payer account. So sometimes they call it as master payer account. So this account is predominantly used for capturing the bills coming out of different AWS account, and they will have an accumulated bill, and they will internally cross charge by paying to AWS. So FinOps team might need a separate AWS account. So if you have separate teams by their roles and responsibilities, sometimes organization go and create separate AWS account for that. So in a nutshell, AWS accounts are fundamental part of accessing AWS services, number one. Number two, we might create multiple AWS account for providing access to different administrative capabilities, or based on their access, based on their billing, you might create multiple AWS account. So ideally, you are achieving resource independence, resource isolation in your organization. So that is the primary stuff that we are trying to achieve here. So resources are getting independent from each other, and resources are getting isolated from each other, so that you can give access to different teams, different business unit, different roles, I mean, different engineers paying different roles in your organization. So ideally, AWS account is a resource container to start with. So it stores all your resources. Okay, it's a resource container. So you might need to create multiple AWS account or multiple resource container in your organization. So now, as I told you, primarily we create it for security boundary, isolation boundary, access control, and billing boundary. So resources that you create in your account are available only to the user who have credential for that account. So if you don't have access, then you cannot do anything. So this is mainly the reason for creating multiple accounts is to establish a secure, well-governed environment. So unnecessarily, you need not give multiple organization access to a particular account. So this actually gives you a way of segregation, right? So I will show you how to create accounts and then how to manage invitations for other customers. You can also allow different third-party vendors access to a particular account, and you can also apply policies to different accounts or stuff. So what we generally do is in an organization, we have two major accounts. Okay, one is management account through which you do all the management related activities, and we might also use that same account as a master payer account through which you will control all the billing that is happening for the organization. See, management account is mainly for better governance, better management, and better centralized policy pushing. So if you want to apply policies to different AWS account, and if you want to control the type of resources or type of instances that your organization is creating, you can apply policies from this management account. So management account is mainly for doing all the integrations, and it will actually take care of all the member accounts primarily from the billing and the payment aspect. Okay, so member accounts are something which is mainly created based on your requirements. As I told you, these are all member accounts. You might create it by business unit, or you might create it based on your organizational requirements. So multiple accounts where you have the actual workloads created, those are all called member accounts. Management account will not have any customer workload. It is only for managing purposes and only for billing and payment related activities purposes. So you can use this for governance, administration. When I say administration, you can apply policies and permissions and stuff, and you can also use it for payment and billing related activities. So that is the primary purpose of management account or master payer account. Member accounts is where you go and create all your resources or workloads, your business related applications, apps related workloads will be running here in your member accounts. So let's go and see how to create a AWS account. So you might have to create multiple AWS account based on your organization requirements, and each and every AWS account that you create will have your resources, and each of your resource will have its own ARN ID. Okay, so it's like each resource will have an ARN ID. So what is this ARN? Amazon resource name. So within Amazon, there is a identifier or ID that gets created to differentiate the different resources that we are creating. So now I've just logged into my one of my email ID. I've just created an email ID AWS with stan@gmail.com. And if you want to create a new account, you can just directly go to console.aws.amazon.com, or you can also go to aws.amazon.com directly. So if you add this console, it will take you to the web management portal, or else like if you just type aws.amazon.com, it will take you directly to the homepage of Amazon. See here in this screen, you have two options. If you already have an existing account, you can go and log in with that account, or if you want to create a new AWS account, you can create this new account by selecting this option. So the first step, you can go and sign in .aws.amazon.com, or you can use console.aws.amazon.com, where you can go and create a new AWS account. So now here I have an email ID and I want to create a new AWS account. So there is a trick here or a tip here. See, generally as a customer, we might have multiple email addresses attached to different AWS account. So generally in an organization, what they will do is they will not create multiple email ID. Instead, they will use this technique here. For example, as I told you, if I want to have all my security logs or SIEM related stuffs in a separate account, what I can just do is, or I want to have a shared services, let me just go and say AWS the stan plus you can use this wildcard character here, and whatever purpose, if you want to have shared services or if you want to have like SIEM, you can just add that SIEM and you can just give at gmail.com. So what it will do is it will create a separate AWS account, but email ID will be just this email ID. You can use only one email ID where you can control all the AWS account related stuff. So here I'm just going to give AWS with stan SIEM account. Okay, and then let me just sign in. So you can also change this later. Okay, but if you want to just have segregation, you can also have segregation. And let's go and verify the email ID. So now you will get a verification code on your email ID that you have created, and it is valid for 10 minutes. Okay, and within that you have to enter the code, or else you can resend the code if in case if there is an issue. So it's your email address has been successfully verified. Now you can go and set a password for that AWS account. So they are also giving some suggestions here. Okay, so but I don't have to use that. If I use that, I don't have to remember. Automatically it will store and help me. This is a feature in Google. Okay, so let me see. Fine. So I've just given some password which is complex enough. Okay, let me save it. Now you have these options here. So you have option to choose personal for your own projects. If you want to do some um, testing or training or experimentation, so for your personal usage or for your projects, you can create this. Or if you're going to do it for a particular business unit or for your office or your work or school, you can just go for business. For organization or universities, schools, or for a company, you can just use it. See, organization might be a collection of companies. Okay, so you can do it for work. If it is for work, you can select business, or if it is for personal, you can just go for personal. So this is also called business account. Okay, so now I'm just going to create a personal account, and if you look at the left side, so they are giving you three different categories of offers or three different types of products that you can consume. So when you create an AWS account, so you are eligible to use AWS account free for 1 year. Okay, and when I say free for 1 year, not all the services are free for 1 year. There are certain services which are free for 1 year, and there are certain services which are always free, and there are certain services which has a limit actually. So we'll get to understand what are the different services which are always free, which are 12 months free, and something which has got trial period. So how do we differentiate it, or how do we get those details? So if you go to this link, aws.amazon.com/free, if you just select this site, if you go to the site, you will get to understand what are the different free tier products and services that you can utilize. So let me show you those categories now. So if you scroll down, you will be able to see these three categories which we are talking about. So more than 100 AWS products are available on AWS on the free tier category. So there are 100 plus products that you can use it for free, and they have categorized the product into the major grouping. See, compute, database, storage, container. So they have grouped it into that particular category. And on the left, you have the tiering type. Okay, if you go with the free trial one, okay, so these are the trial products which are in free trial, and it is in free tier. Okay, you have to differentiate these two things. We are talking about free tier and free trial, two different things. Okay, free trial means you can go and try that out for free, and you can also it is also coming under the 1 year free tier category. Okay, so you can just understand what are those different services. If you want to try and use the Amazon Inspector, it is free for 15 days, and there are certain services which are free for 2 months, 3 months, and so on. And now there are certain services which are always free. So if you are looking at Amazon DynamoDB or Lambda, these are all always free services, but there is a cap to it. Okay, so if you are using more than 25 GB of storage, then the bill will get generated. If you are using more than 1 million free requests per month, then you will get a particular billing. So there are certain services which are trial services which are always free, and there are certain services which are free for 12 months. So if you are planning to learn AWS without cost for 12 months, then you need to create only this much amount of services. If you are creating Amazon S3, you should only store 5 GB of storage, and this is the size that they are giving you for free, and this is actually for every month. And again, same applies to Amazon EC2. This is per month. Okay, for 1 month you can have 750 hours of EC2 running time. So and again, they are giving some specific instance categories which can be used for free, like the T4G small, or the T2 micro or T3 micro instances. So these are all free of cost, and you can run, for example, if you are running let's say 10 systems, then each 10 systems can run 75 hours each for free. Okay, and if it is like no, that's what I'm selling, Sindhil. Okay, so yeah, if you're running multiple instances, you can divide it by 750 hours. So that is how it has to be considered. So it is per month usage, it is not per instance usage. So you can have multiple instances running, and you can subdivide them. Similarly, like there are different services, there are multiple tabs here. You can go and check all these different offering. So based on this, if you are playing around, you will not get any bill. But if you are going and consuming more than what they have given, then that is where you have to pay for your usage. Okay, you can understand what are the different products that they are offering, and based on the categorization, you can go and create and learn stuffs. Okay, so let's go back here. Now, if you want to create it, like it is asking whom should we contact about this account. So if you have a business owner, or if you have an application owner, you can give their contact, or if you have a third party vendor, you can also give their name. But for now, I will just go with my name, AWS with Stan, and then phone number, that is fine. I can just give my India phone number, 531 485. Okay, you can give your details, and you can go to the terms and conditions, and you can just move on with adding your credit card details. See, they are saying we will not charge you for usage below the free tier limit. We will temporarily hold up to $1, and they will return it after 3 to 5 business days after they verify your identity. This is only for identity verification, and they will return it back. So as I told you, this is for credibility check. Okay, so there sometimes they might use up to $1 in some locations. So you can enter your credit card details, and they are also allowing debit card as per this particular heading. But generally, I have seen AWS used to allow only credit card, but these days I think they have changed the policy, because Microsoft Azure, they allow both credit cards. So yeah, that's right. So they are saying all major credit and debit cards are allowed, and you can enter and create it. So once after you enter your credit card details, and once you create your account, so you will have access to your specific account. Okay, so if you want to enter your PAN card, you can enter the PAN card. But if it is for professional purpose, you need to kind of definitely enter the GST details and the PAN details. But if it is personal, you don't have to really worry about it. You can enter the card details. Let me try to. Okay, let me enter the details here, and we can complete the setup. So once after you do this, what we can do is we can just log into your account. Let me go back here. I will just say or I will go with the incognito window. And then you can use that ID. So I've created multiple IDs with the same email address. So I can just use one of them, or I can use the previous one also, and then log in. Okay, so based on your organization requirement, with one email ID, you can have multiple AWS accounts created, and you can start creating your services. So now this is the home page that you will get once after you log in with the newly created account, and you can get started with creating multiple solutions, products, and stuff. And you can also see the billing, cost, and usage on the left side pane here. So now, if you want to get started with AWS, you can also go and understand what are the different tools, what are the different training and certification options that we have, and what are the new regions and services that are coming up with AWS. So you can get to understand that. And for a solution architect, yeah, we should always stay tuned on the new offering, new services, so we can try to find out what are the recent new products that are announced and so on. Okay, so this is to stay tuned for different products and offering by category here. And so let's go and try and create some services. So any questions on the account creation so far? Okay, if not, we will continue. So mainly like AWS accounts, we will create multiple accounts to have isolation. If there are many teams supporting your organization, we go and create separate accounts based on their different responsibilities. Even one more point I missed on the explanation. See, some organization, they might have some application that should be compliant to particular legal security requirements. So few applications which are like, for example, let's say might be interfacing with payment card systems or payment industry systems. Okay, so for such applications, okay, we might have to have PCI compliancy or PCI DSS, data payment card industry data security standard compliancy might be needed. So if you have some application which need PCI compliancy, some application which need SOC compliancy and so on, so even based on the legal compliance requirement, we might go and create separate AWS account to ensure that we have legal security compliance for those AWS account. And it is mainly like based on the business need, based on the business processes, we will go and create multiple account. Okay, so you will get to understand when you work with different industry or different customer, so they might have these need. And even you might also go and create a separate AWS account for providing sandbox or testing or development platform for your engineers or employees. And if you want to apply specific quota for each and every account, you can have some specific budgets allocated, quota allocated for each and every steps in your organization. Yeah, go ahead. I saw someone coming out of mute.
Yeah, Stan, I'm going. Send it.
Yes, Sindel.
Stan, you showed us like to create an AWS account using the credit card with the email ID we registered, right?
Mm-hmm.
So inside that, you were saying like multiple accounts can be created, right?
Correct.
Like,
Yes.
is it for one email ID inside?
Mm-hmm.
Can you create like 2 or 3 accounts inside?
Yeah. Mm.
So for each account, you will get that free tier. Is that right?
Correct. That is right. Yes. So with
Or
one
how it is
email
managed?
ID, with one email ID, you can have multiple number of AWS account, and for each AWS account, you will have separate free tier subscription. See, for example, AWS with Stan prod account I created maybe 4 5 months back. So that free tier will end up by next Feb or March. Whereas the new account that I created for
Okay.
SIEM, it will be valid until next October.
Okay, but you will be using the same email address.
Yeah. The email
However,
address will be
inside
the
that
same. Yeah, email address will be the same, and I will receive bill for separate AWS account. See, if I go to my email ID, I will be receiving bill for each and different AWS account. For prod, I will receive a payment for that, and for other accounts, I might receive different payment and stuff. If you want to have consolidated billing, that is also possible.
okay, it's like a single window. Like inside, you can manage multiple. So is this like something like you create one entity and one ID, and inside that you can manage multiple customers, like one account for one customer, something like that, correct?
Not for multiple customer, see, one organization might have multiple business unit, multiple department, multiple sub companies within your organization. So we have to have a separate isolation. So this management account is for single organization, and within that management account you can link multiple member accounts. So member account may be for different customers, or I mean different companies within that organization. Okay, maybe
Okay.
there might be some sub child companies or daughter concerns or whatever within the organization. You might have different companies, or you might have different business units, business departments, and then you might have
Okay.
different environment teams and stuff. So you will go and create that.
Okay, so that's why when I open the page like AWS signin.aws.amazon.com, it asks me for like account ID, IAM username and password.
Mhm,
So account ID is the one you will create multiple inside one particular email,
mhm.
whereas the IAM username is the Stan with Stan plus that SIM account, correct? That's how it is
Yeah,
going to roll.
name can be different, ID can be different. See, when I go and create the account, see if I look at here, it each account will have a separate account ID. Okay, that is the first thing. And you can also have a different email address for logging in. See, to simplify things, you instead of having 10 email IDs for 10 AWS account, I just gave you a tip and trick. Okay, in some organization they might go and create separate email ID only, but for our learning
Okay.
purposes, see, if you want to learn like how the real environment is, you might need to create multiple AWS account, right? So if that is
Okay.
the case, then I just want to help you simplify things. See, if the accounts are used by different organization or business unit, they will go for different email ID only. So they will not do the
Okay.
trick that I used actually.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so here for study purpose, I can create central
yeah.
and an email ID. Inside that, I can create multiple accounts
Mm,
for testing, correct?
correct,
So,
true.
and each account will have its own free tier free usages, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Yeah. So each AWS account will have its own unique account ID, and with that you will be able to identify, or you can also use the name for identifying it. So you can go and change that. If you go to account screen or account console, you will be able to. It will take you to the billing management console where you will see the home, and you can also see what is the account name, ID, and so on. So if I go to my bills here, it will also show me the specific bill that has been generated for my account, and based on the bill I can go and pay for it. So there is some bill that is pending, I can just go and pay that. So yeah, so now we have created an AWS account, and I can just start creating some services within my account. In order to do that, I can just go to my account. I can just go back to the services, go to EC2 or whatever services that I want, and I can start creating them. So generally, we will start learning by creating some services on this particular list of services, like either it can be compute or storage. But before that, in AWS or in any particular cloud environment, we are going to create production category workload. For production category workload, we might have to have an understanding what are the different support requirements that we have, what are the different SLA requirements we have. See, for example, cloud is a shared responsibility model. So here in cloud, we might have different environment, right? Some environment might be business critical, some environment might be for testing, some environment might be for moderate critical workload. So the support expectation from